of Bala for this rather nasty little tale, which has come down to us by the name of Vengeance Will Come.
You might see there's a little pie just there, up in the northwest of Wales. This is one of two stories in Tales of Britain in this area of Wales involving drowning. See, the thing is, the folk of Wales, they seem to have a bit of a thing for lost lands, which perhaps makes sense when you think that they have been having land stolen from them throughout most of Britain's history. I mean, you may not know this, but the Anglo-Saxon word for these people is Welsh and Wales. They are the original British people who were pushed out there. And Welsh means stranger in Anglo-Saxon. So the English came in, took their land, and then called them the stranger, which is nice. It's like if a burglar breaks into your house in the middle of the night and says, "What are you doing here, stranger?" It's very nice of them, isn't it? So anyway, telling two different tales about Welsh palaces flooded into legend may seem a little overgenerous of Tales of Britain, but this yarn does have a certain flavour all of its own, and it was originally told by the very clever Taliesin the Bard, so it should be worth remembering.
As Taliesin told the tale, this must have happened many thousands of years ago. But once there was an old town called Bala, in what is now known as Snowdonia in North Wales. Now, don't go looking for it, because you won't find a single slate of that ancient Bala, just a rebuilt new town of the same name, near where Taliesin himself lived as a young boy. This modern town is on the shores of Lake Bala, a vast... Sorry, something's gone on. I'll repeat myself.
Which is spelled on the book?
It's these spiders, they keep interfering. Basically, so, where was I? This modern town is on the shores of Lake Bala, a vast deep pool, but down in the hollow where that lake now lies, there was once a fine slate-roofed British settlement, overshadowed by the opulent palace of Llyn Tegid. This was where the wicked Tegid Fowell was king. His name means bald Tegid, but while he was king, everyone told him it meant brilliant Tegid, because if this miserable old ruler ever realised how people knew his big blonde mop of hair was a wig, and made fun of his shiny slap head behind his back, he would have ordered the entire town to be put to the sword, the axe, and whatever else sharp thing was generally to hand.
Now, that might sound like a bit of an overreaction, but what you've got to bear in mind is that King Tegid prided himself on his evil. Now, you thought Thomas Vaughan was bad, but the things that... Oh, my God, in this company, I cannot repeat some of the things that Tegid Fowell used to get up to. Honestly, from the moment he opened his beady eyes in the morning to the last bogey he smeared on his servants before bedtime, everything he did was unpleasant, immoral, selfish, spiteful, and just plain wrong. One day, this old smelly king was told that his daughter had given birth to a son, and he was a grandfather at last with a male heir to rule Bala when he died. Not that his daughter could have done a much better job of running Bala than him anyway, but he decided that only men could take the throne because he said, direct quote, "Girls are only good for having male babies."
Great.
Direct quote, I said.
It was the time of Samhain, the pagan festival of the dead and the living, where the line between this world and the next was at its thinnest, which was also a great cause for a party, obviously. King Tegid was a nasty wighead, and he announced to the people of Bala,
"Okay, as we are now a grandfather, we have decided to throw a huge Halloween party. It's gonna be a spooky Samhain grandfather party, all for me. It's gonna be the best everyone, just the best party you ever had in your life. It's just, we're gonna have the best food, the best booze, and the best music. We're gonna have no squealing babies, oh no. We're gonna have no girls, no girls allowed, no. And I'm only gonna invite all of my most evil and villainous colleagues. None of you dirtbags are invited. It's just gonna be the best for the best of the best. It's gonna be the best. We'll make Bala great again."
And so that was what happened. Invites went out to all the evil, people, the evil wizard Growlmouth, horrible King Harry of Ricelip, the witch Grotbogies, the positively stinking warrior Dumbum, the stranger to soap, and a few other cruel characters from neighbouring kingdoms. On a rainy Saturday night, these bad eggs all travelled out to Balor's palace to find a feasting room packed with wild boar, suckling calves and fat chickens, all cooked so rare they weren't just dripping blood, some of them were still blinking. In the centre of the table was a vast pie, absolutely filled with naughty sweeties. Then there was a vast pool filled with wine, into which the guests dripped the skulls of their enemies or close family members and drank deep. Soon this bad lot were carousing evil songs like I Love Hurting Puppies and the chilling ballad That Girl from Rill Who I Ate for Supper. These songs were requested with blood-dripping roars from the drunken mob, and like it or not, and the answer was not, the musician just had to play along.
Now, there was only the one musician, Illid the harpist, and she was also the only woman allowed at the party, besides Grotbogies, who barely even counted as human, to be honest. In fact, the noise was so bad from all these howling, drunken guests that most of the folk of Balor had all decided quite wisely to go away for the weekend. So Illid was one of the only women left in the whole town. Illid the harpist was, as her name suggests, a wonderful player of that most Welsh of musical instruments, the tinkling Welsh harp. Not that any of her skilled plucking could be heard above the din of the drunken baddies, but at least while they were bawling ballads, they weren't shouting abusive threats her way, calling her babes or toots, or making absolutely unforgivably rude suggestions. Look, for poor Illid, it was just a gig anyway. And if she knew that if she'd said no to the king, he would only have killed her family, so she was just trying her best to make the best of a bad night. However, Illid was not exactly playing at her best that evening, partly because of those hideous party guests, but mainly because she kept getting distracted by a strange green bird who was flapping about the rafters, singing something.
King Tegid roared,
Hey! Somebody shoot that nasty little bird!
and his despicable guests twanged off a few arrows, but were so sodden with wine they missed by a mile. They couldn't even hit the bird when it flew down into the feasting table and looked King Tegid right in the ugly mush and sang, Vengeance will come!
Somebody squash the warbling little tit!
The king roared,
Did it say something?
one of the drunken guests said.
Of course it didn't say anything, you chuntering old bucket of pus!
Spat back the king.
It's a goddamn bird!
But somehow Illid couldn't stop herself. It said, vengeance will come, I'm sure, she piped up. She was bedazzled by the little green bird's song and deep glistening plumage, and had quite forgotten her place and the dangerous company she was keeping.
Keep your slatin gob shut, you harpist harpy!
Fired back King Tegid. He felt quite pleased with that one.
Vengeance will come!
Sang the bird again and flew back up to the rafters.
There it goes again!
Illid said.
Vengeance will come!
The king spluttered, his blonde wig slipping on his shiny bonds.
It was just a warble. I'm not paying you to use your imagination, am I?
You're not paying me at all. You just said you set fire to my parents if I didn't show up.
She replied.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I still might, especially if you don't stop making stuff up and keep your fat trap shut. I never got to be king by using my imagination.
Vengeance will come!
Trilled that wonderful green bird once again.
Now, I hired you to play the harp, and play the harp you will. Let's have a chorus or four of I'd like to rip open the world's guts. What do you say, guys?
Well, it wasn't one of Illid's favourite songs, I must say, but once the boozy gathering had begun yelling a few lines so off-key they were inventing new keys, it was clear that nobody was really listening to her harp playing anyway. Yet she could still hear one more Vengeance will come trilling from the green bird as she spied it flying out of the top window. Illid never knew why, but she just had to follow that little green bird. She stood up and slipped out of the great hall and dashed to welcome the fresh, cool night air. Vengeance will come, she heard, whistled from the courtyard and saw the bird fly along the drawbridge beyond the town of Bala and uphill, where Ilid arrived at the brow of the banks surrounding Bala. The green bird stopped and flapped down onto her shoulder. This time it did not say, "Vengeance will come," but sang the most beautiful melody in her ear. It was a rare treat for Ilid to have music played for her rather than the other way around. And this gentle trilling soon sent her into a deep sleep in the thick, warm, wet grass.
When Ilid the harpist awoke the next morning, she was completely astounded to find herself lying on the banks of a large lake, lapping at the shore, with no sign of Bala at all. The only thing she did see was her harp, which floated on the water and came within easy distance for her to pull out of the lake, and with one tinkling strum, she could tell that it was unharmed. And soon she ran into a gaggle of Bala townsfolk and learned what had happened. As all of those despicable party guests got drunker and drunker that Halloween night, the ancient well in the castle courtyard suddenly began to gush with water like never before, and simply never stopped until the whole town of Bala was drowned right up to the tips of the chimney pots. Thankfully, everyone who wasn't passed out drunk at King Tegid's party had managed to scramble up into the hills, and everyone was accounted for.
The survivors decided that they would all join together to build a new town, free from the cruelty of King Tegid, and so they did. And while they worked away, hammering and sawing with light hearts, they were entertained by the beautiful music of Ilid the harpist. When they listened very carefully, they could also hear a small, high voice singing along, "Vengeance has come."